Don't worry, comrade from the West. We're just building a small decorative wall right here. Emphasis on small, I guess. We communists would never build a giant wall over your entire side of Berlin. Nah. Who would give you that idea? I kind of wonder if that was the excuse they used on the first day they started constructing this thing. Nothing to worry about. We just really enjoy walls. Why else would they build it in 1961? We built it to keep fascists out of Germany, prevents East Germans from entering the West. What did they mean by this? Their argument, I kid you not, was that it was prevent infiltrators from coming in, totally not to keep the people from fleeing out. Now the very famous, no one has the intention of building a wall. Britain in British history books, Britain in American history books, Britain in Indian history books, Britain in Hong Kong history books. Ah, now that's a unique situation there they had. One of the only places outside of Britain that has pretty favorable views of Great Britain. That's because in Hong Kong's history books, this is what China looks like. The handover of this former British territory known as Hong Kong back to China occurred in 1997. This event ended 150 years of British rule in the former colony, which began in 1841. And the people of Hong Kong are still dealing with this fallout even today. What about Britain in Australian history books? Go to jail. Go directly to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Friend, how did the US become a superpower? Me, so the Ottoman Empire started to charge high taxes for the Silk Road. My friend, what does this have to do with the US? We'll get there when we get there. This is actually one of those examples where, yeah, we do have to start there. I can make all these jokes, like in order to explain how we founded the American continents, we have to go back to the Big Bang. We don't really need to go that far back. But in this situation, to talk about how the US became a superpower, going back to the Ottomans is kind of a key detail. I mean, I guess you could leave it out, but I feel like there'd be something missing. You can't really talk about the founding of America without the Ottoman empires and the spice trade. That's the whole reason why the Europeans had to find another way to go around. Also because the USA managed to consolidate a whole continent's worth of resources while basically having the biggest possible natural defense between them and anyone who could realistically oppose them. Yeah, that's an important detail, at least when talking about the USA and superpower part. Immigration obviously was important too. It kind of just comes down to this though, to be honest, yeah. You of course can go further back than the Ottomans, but I mean, to be honest, it's fine. This man is probably the greatest monarch who's ever reigned. Be Pedro II of Brazil, become emperor at 14 after 9 years of regency, actually tries to improve things, success, encourage mass education for his subjects, oversees the construction of railroads, ports, universities, telegraphs, promotes immigration from Europe, champions rule of law and freedom of speech, manages to get along with both liberal and conservative governments, abolishes slavery in 1888, last Western state to do so, agrarian_oligarch_angry.execute. They launch a coup, dispose him, replacing a democratic monarch with an oligarchic republic. His 49-year reign is known today as the Brazilian Golden Age. A monarch conducted with infinite wisdom and infinite benevolence is the most perfect of all possible governments. Wow, 1783. I mean, there's a reason why in the civilization games, if they include a Brazilian civ, it's always Pedro II that's leading them. I guess I could say two things though. One, that this guy was a good leader, or that Brazil just hasn't had a lot of good leaders. They've also just been straight up a dictatorship for many years. Oligarchs angry is a thread that spans throughout Brazilian politics, lol. Why do the good ones always leave? It says right there, oligarchs angry. Oligarch republic is a very generous way to define a military dictatorship. White people don't know what the resistance is because throughout history, they've always been the oppressor. Allow us to introduce ourselves as Poland, Ireland, and Yugoslavia. And there's definitely more examples than just that. You could kind of replace Poland and Yugoslavia with just all of Eastern Europe. Something I've been noticing recently is there's a subset of people, I think specifically from the American continent, that believe that white people is synonymous with British. I don't know, I'm pretty sure, this is a theory, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going on here. And they're almost always Americans, of course. It's like people thinking being Asian is synonymous with being from China. Like, no, that is just one nation out of so many others. Like, honestly, I really think that's what's going on here, especially since the British historically were just so expansive. The very first white people a large part of the world ever saw were from the British Isles, so I don't really blame them. Then you go ahead and look over at the country that is closest to Britain, and well, there you go. It's not been fun for Ireland, that's for sure. Also, learning the history of Eastern Europe, I think, is a good idea too. Discussing Russian imperialism. Here's what it's like to discuss that with Eastern Europeans. Here's what it feels like to discuss that with Western Europeans. And finally, with Americans. Yeah, that is the majority of us, not gonna lie. It's hard for many people to clearly wrap their head around Russian imperialism, that's for sure. Unless you are under that imperialism, of course. I certainly have a couple things to say about that whole thing. Senator McCain called Russia a gas station masquerading as a country, which was pretty spot on. Emily here tweeting out a Hinge screenshot. Stalin liked you. Wow, Stalin has a Hinge account? This reply, well, it's better than him disliking you. That's for damn sure. Yeah, when he dislikes you, he'll Photoshop you out of all his photos. And honestly, this should be the least of your concerns. He's gonna probably do way worse than just that. No matter of time before he banishes you to the Hinge gulag. How to pronounce my name? name, Stalin. All right. The Yamato was pathetic. Biggest battleship ever, spent 99% of its deployment as a carrier escort doing shore bombardment. Only kill was an assistant on an escort carrier. Japanese Army Navy infighting was hilariously bad. 1945, war going badly for Japan. Navy is out of aircraft, thus can't risk large battleships without aircraft. Army has aircraft, but also criticizes the Navy for being cowards for not sending out battleships. Navy basically sends the Yamato on a suicide mission. Yamato gets immediately swarmed hundreds of American aircraft. It's possible more Japanese aircraft were destroyed from Yamato's seaplane hangar than American. Wow. That is certainly an interesting take on the biggest battleship ever. I like how we still equate biggest with good, even though that's not necessarily the case. Never underestimate that infighting between Japanese Navy and Army during World War II. How Douglas MacArthur portrayed himself versus how everyone sees him now. He is kind of a meme lord at this point. Unironically, he was like, let's just drop 50 nukes on the Korean Peninsula. Job done. However, have you seen the way Japan sees MacArthur, aka the last shogun? I have, actually. You can see a lot of this in Japan still to this day. No wonder he thought he was a god, because Japan was building him up to be. I guess that's what happens when you take a picture with their emperor like this. Truman, the president at the time, said, I fired him because he wouldn't respect the authority of the president. I didn't fire him because he was a dumb son of a bee, although he was. Jeez. Truman had no chill, whether it was that or with Oppenheimer. Me DMing Mitsubishi. Hi, do you still make these? I know it's a very old model. Sorry, out of stock and no longer in production. Dang, I was just a little too late. Couple decades late, but man, can you just bring this back just for old time's sake? Just bring it out of the time capsule. I'm trying to put one of these in my backyard. Never ask a woman's age, a man's income, or a German automobile company what they were doing during World War II. Same for Japan. I bet he's thinking about other women. Meanwhile, what I'm actually thinking about, how the frick did Thailand remain independent from the European powers? I've actually been looking at this a lot recently. It is incredible. They managed to remain independent for centuries, smashed in between the French Empire, the British Empire, even the Dutch down here in Indonesia. There's also the Americans when they eventually got the Philippines, but that was formerly a part of the Spanish Empire. First of all, diplomatically, they were very smart, but it also helped a lot that these major European powers liked them acting as a buffer state, kind of like the way Afghanistan acted like a buffer state between the British Empire and the Russian Empire. They did, however, still lose Laos to the French. That is a part of it. Look, I don't know about you guys, but it's my personal theory that if you stay completely still, they can't see you. I think the Iranians tested it and worked. Also for the Swiss. Leave us alone and you get ladyboys. How could the French resist? What's that? We're from the future. Whoa, says the 13 colonies to America. No way, this is so cool, says a colonial Canada to modern Canada. Responds this Mexican empire to modern day Mexico. Oh yeah, they've shifted quite a bit. The brief time a Habsburg was in charge of the Mexican Empire. I thought the Mexican Empire flag was a little bit different though. Well, I should note that there were actually two Mexican empires, and we are referring to the first one here. The second one was a couple decades after that. That is when the Austrian man was put in charge right this way. He was not left in power for very long, but some people still to this day look at him fondly, even though the dude got executed. China be like, I want to be integrated into the global economy. The West, okay, as you'll grow and become more like us, right? Meanwhile, China, you'll become more liberal like us, right? Lol, nice try. In the beginning though, it seemed like a great idea. Western MFers spent the entire 1800s wrenching China open for world trade, only to regret it a century later. LMAO. Country has a literal century of humiliation. Why is China so hyper-focused on growth? Yeah, that's pretty much explains it. It's like asking a Poland right now why they are aggressively defensive of their country. I mean, literally just look at the past. That whole Sino-Soviet split back during the Cold War days was a very important victory for the West, driving a massive dagger in between these two sides of the communist world. Why different countries adopted the Latin alphabet. For Rome, it was because they invented the Latin alphabet. Shut up, Greece. For the American continents, it was because they were conquered. For the Nordic region, it was the robbed monks that we robbed taught us how to. Finally, there's Vietnam, because Chinese is too hard. I mean, honestly, I'd probably agree. Chinese is extremely difficult. I'll take the Latin alphabet any day of the week. Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, all using unique alphabets for their language. Meanwhile, Vietnam. Those are the neighboring countries, but you also have like Korea, Japan, and China obviously doing their own thing. There's some other Asian countries where Latin was able to sneak over into, but it is obviously a pretty rare thing for this continent. Poland adopted Latin just so they wouldn't have a writing system that's similar to Russian. Indonesian and Malaysian, learning Arabic is hard. It just needs something that's easy and quick to learn. That's also how the Korean alphabet, which is obviously one of the more famous alphabets of the world because of how simple it is to use also, that's how that kind of came out. POV, your Singapore being ejected from the Malaysian Federation circa 1965. Oh, it's alright, Singapore. You're gonna grow up to be a really big girl. Probably be able to beat up that old meanie back there. That definitely won't backfire at all, Malaysia. Close your eyes, bro. Okay, bro. What do you see? Nothing. That's the tribute I pay you. Bro. Bam. Why don't we have more history memes like this? Just communicating with bros back and forth. Romania and the Ottomans. What a bunch of bros. Want to see a magic trick? I can make this pole disappear. Basically, yeah, bad neighbors make good fences if you don't get it. Yo, I bet there were a couple seconds on this medieval torture stretcher rack where it feels incredible. Maybe one of the most pleasurable moments of your life even, but then that would quickly turn into probably the most pain you've ever felt in your life at the very same time. Can I just volunteer to do the part that it feels good and we just stop after that? True, my therapist has put me on a machine that looks kind of like this. Yeah, just getting that tension out of the upper back would be amazing. Tanks are absolutely obsolete. Carriers are obsolete. Nukes are obsolete. Fighters are obsolete. War has changed. No, because nothing ever happens. If you want a picture of the future, imagine artillery firing at dug-in entrenched infantry forever. Certainly that is what the Ukraine-Russian war is teaching us. Elements of the future with drones, but also we've gone back to World War I, weirdly. The whole trench warfare is back more than ever before. Weird how that works. Reject mobility, embrace trench warfare. The most badass move in World War II was the Japanese eating the first atom bomb and then telling America, yeah, whatever, we don't believe you got another one. Literally 40,000 people and an entire city vanish in a split second, and Japan's just like, is that all you got? No wonder we didn't want to land invade the Japanese. Keep in mind, not only are they the first country that experiences the power of the sun dropped on 2 different cities, but then also the Red Army from the Soviet Union is invading Manchuria. Like, talk about an impossible task. They were literally being attacked from all different sides. That is the only way they would have surrendered. So yeah, definitely badass move there, Japan. Tokyo was discussed as the obvious target for a third bomb, the majority problem being that there would be no one in the government alive to negotiate peace with. It'd be crazy to think if Oppenheimer here only made 1 bomb for Hiroshima. Would the Japanese have just kept on fighting? Maybe. When you're a fast animal and slow hairless apes try to run you down and kill you with primitive short-range weapons, only problem is they never get tired. How terrifying is this, actually? There's so many like myths and even movies that discuss like a horrific creature or monster that's like constantly following you. It never stops, it's slow, but it's always coming after you. What's that? It's like a snail. There's like a story about like if a snail catches you or something. That's what we did to the animal kingdom. That is how humans became at the top of the food chain. Then immediately after that, we team up with wolves. Like, we are too OP. Why didn't somebody nerf us? Then we figure out how to throw rocks at the same time? Man, we just too dominant. Lions with stealth followed by short bursts of speed to deliver the killing blow. Crocodiles with stealth followed by quick lunge to deliver the killing blow. Us hairless apes with our slow chase with rocks for hours or even days till the prey can barely breathe, vomits its lungs out, suffers heat stroke, and finally gets clubbed to death. We are the baddies of the animal kingdom. Imagine just being like a nice friendly deer or something like that, and then a pack of humans decides they're just not gonna stop chasing you. You won't be able to sleep or rest or eat. Good luck beating us. And a big old thanks to my patrons. I stole Drew Durnil's Robux and won't return them until he plays Cartwright into Drew Durnil. Alexander Drew's the Argentinian Grandpa. I'm back, boys. aPhatNarwhal. Connor Pavlik. I will literally revive DoOOCHBAGGINS. If Drew doesn't realize Imperial Japan flag is the same as modern Japan. NordTyrol, Tambre, the Mexican 760, and ZaneyBoi.